What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Fede Perez and Rob Hanna. And guys, here we are. It's November. It's finally November. One more month until the end of the year, and then we get into 2024. The year has flown by so fast, but of course, our Paraguayan football is not stopping. Obviously, we still have a league to be decided. We're speaking also about 24 hours before the big Copa Libertadores final happening in Brazil between Boca Juniors and Fluminense. We could possibly see another Paraguayan winning a title. We saw that for so many years at different clubs like Gustavo Gomez at Palmeiras. Maybe Bruno Valdez does it again. Does it this time at Boca Juniors and wins their first title in such a long time. We'll see what happens there. Obviously, we're seeing the MLS Cup Playoffs where a bunch of our Paraguayan players who play on the national team are performing. They're on a good path. We'll see how long and how far they can get in this kind of really weird format, actually. It's a different format than beforehand that we'll explain to you guys shortly. We saw in England as well from one person off the pitch doing really bad stuff in a way of getting a license suspension to one making his name on the score sheet with Miguel Almiron scoring against Manchester United with a really weird celebration of him driving the car. We'll explain that shortly. But yeah, Fede, it's for someone that, you made that car celebration right now, I feel bad for the cars that have to deal with the recent rainstorms that are going on over there in Paraguay. It feels like you guys never get a break. Doesn't matter if it's going on with stuff off the pitch, with like things related to football or Mother Nature. Just you guys don't get a break, man. There's always something happening.
We're always on the news, Roberto. Hi to you, hi to Ralph, hi to everybody listening to Guarani Vision. Yeah, it's great to be back. It's raining season here. We got rain pretty much every day, every other day. And besides rain, we have storms, huge storms. And yeah, we had a couple of tornadoes even in the countryside, which is actually kind of weird to see 3, 4 tornadoes, I don't know, in the same week. I don't think I've seen that in previous years, but Mother Nature is doing its thing pretty much all around the world. And yeah, you got to be worried about that. You got to be worried about floods right now. And then we're probably going to get the high temperatures. We actually kind of had that already last weekend during the Superclasico. What a hot first half that was, especially because the match started around 5 p.m. So it was the sun was really out there. It was really burning everybody. And I think it had a lot to do with the match, also how it was played, especially in that first half. Even the coaches talked about it. We're going to look back at what happened in that Super Classico. It's actually been kind of nonstop. I don't know, it's been 2, 3 weeks now, ever since the national team played up until now. I mean, it's been nonstop local football here in Paraguay. Obviously, this has something to do with the way that the coaches are managing their teams, also the rotation. That they're having to move players around. So you're getting a couple of the results that are kind of weird. Libertad tied against Trinidense and would look more like a mud battle because there was a lot of rain also going on in Trinidense's ground. Obviously, talk about that hot Super Classico. And I don't know, guys. Libertad is almost there. I mean, next week, it could be their week. It could be the championship week. Libertad fans are setting up for it. They dominated in this 2023. They deserve it. Back-to-back championships. It looks like it's about to happen, Roberto. We got to talk about that, especially because Cerro is probably going to be the team that's going to have to either stop them or see them celebrate right in front of them. And Cerro Porteño has been their big rival this year, already qualified also to the Libertadores, just as Libertad has already clinched their spot.
It feels like the worst kept secret that Libertad are going to be the champions again of the Clausura after had such a really good start, and also how other teams have kind of fallen off. So yeah, I mean it's going to be inevitable. So hopefully we see that happen sooner rather than later, so we could just put to rest everything that's going on with the league, and then also switching gears to what's going on, like I mentioned beforehand, what's going on in the United States, Ralph, with this kind of weird format that's going on. Like so, basically as we're accustomed to here in other sports, we do best of three. So what MLS has implemented was that for round one, and we have some teams that have some Paraguayans in there: Vancouver Whitecaps, Real Salt Lake, Houston Dynamo, and New York Red Bulls. They have to play a series of best of three, where essentially it's not based on aggregate score. Fede, and I'm going to explain to you here, it's not based on aggregate score. It's based on winning. So it doesn't matter if you win 1-0 or 5-0 as long as that team is able to get the win and then win the next game, then they win the series. So you could see a potential of a team winning 6-0 and then the other team winning 1-0, but the series is tied, so then it goes to a third game to decide it all. So yeah, Ralph, it's you're very much here in America for quite some time. This is a really foreign concept for those that we've been accustomed to football, who's accustomed to home and away ties, aggregate scores, and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah, it's a strange format, and if I'm honest, it's been hard to get into the games because there is, like you say, like there's nothing at stake because there's been a few games where teams have run up like 3-0 or 2-0 really early on, and you're like, well, okay, this game's over, so we'll wait because there's no aggregate. No one's going to try and really force themselves to get back into the game, knowing they still have two more to play. So I think particularly the first games, which we just finished the first round, there didn't seem to be too much at stake. Let's see now. This weekend we get game 2, and then if games 3 are needed, I think it's midweek. So I think now we might start getting some kind of more exciting matches happening. But for now, but for that first round, it was almost like dead rubber. It was strange. I found the games I was watching, and I think it's because we do this in the US. We do this with like high scoring things like basketball, right? That makes sense. But with low scoring games, even in football and NFL, they don't really do this kind of series because it can be very hard. Like, what's going to happen? I don't think we had a draw yet, right? I don't think any of the teams drew. Yeah, but if we have a draw, then you have to play extra time. I mean, it's just like, whoa, this is adding more games to, I think, an already packed schedule. And it's end of season. There's internationals. There's all this kind of stuff. So I don't think it's been the best format, but we will see. The good news is our Paraguayans were all in action. So everybody that was injured for the last international window, so people like Cuas, he was playing for Vancouver. You had Ojeda was playing for Real Salt Lake. So, I mean, everybody's kind of back in action, which is good news as we look ahead to, I think the games are in 2 weeks, right, for the national team. And some good news as well, just staying with MLS, is that, well, good news from a selfish Paraguayan point of view is that Inter Miami are not going to China anymore. So they had this trip planned and it's fallen through. But that's actually good news for Diego Gomez that doesn't have to do this huge cross-continental kind of travel and then come back for the qualifiers. So that kind of helps.
But they keep on practicing, Ralph? Do they stay together as a team, or they just get straight vacations from now?
At the moment, they're still at the training ground. They're still there. Messi was there yesterday to show off his Balón de Oro to the kids. He went to the academy to show all of the kids, which I think was pretty cool. So they're still training for now. I don't know what, I think they will break up for the international break, and that might be it. I don't know if they'll do much after that.
Yeah, I mean, Fede, I wanted to jump to you on this, like this new format. I mean, it's completely different than what we see in other countries. I mean, it's not sustainable, don't you think? Like, imagine having to, yeah, it's a money thing and maybe people want to see it, but it's not the way football is like around the rest of the world, of having to get games be decided rather than scores.
Yeah, I think with Ralph's explanation, with comparing it there with basketball, with other American sports, especially, I think they found it. I think they kind of look for something there, right? Americans have always tried to make this sport their own way. I mean, we can look back to the penalty shootout that they tried out when they were putting in soccer into their country, or just calling it soccer. I mean, not wanting to call it football like the rest of the world. I mean, Americans try to do it their way. I mean, most of the sports that are played in the United States are only played in the United States. I mean, so yeah, they always try to do it their way. They try to always catch people's attention. Also, I do think in the United States they're still trying to catch people into watching football, into capturing new fans. So I think that's why they're always trying new things. Also, I think that's mainly the only reason why this is happening. I don't find any logical explanation to why they're doing this, especially when you're going to have like a 6-0, like you guys were saying. I mean, it's going to be really weird. I'm really happy that Andres Cubas is back. I think he's a very important player for the national team. I think that's a player that we really missed out on the last combo that we had. I'm really looking forward to having him back on the team, especially with Matias Villasanti, the way that he's playing in Gremio. I mean, he just keeps on scoring that midfield with Diego Gomez. I want to see that midfield again that we saw against Peru. That was probably the best midfield I've seen so far from this Ali Roja.
Yeah, just don't tell him about. I'm not going to tell Fede about the clocks going down instead of going up. Oh, too late. I already said it. When you see that, so yeah, Americans have a funny way of dealing with soccer. And by the way, it's an English.
Anytime soon.
It is a British word. It is a British word, as Ralph can admit it. Soccer is a British word. It's taken from there. Association football. So it's that's all I'm going to say. But let's switch to football, as we say in Spanish, to the Superclásicos, because obviously, and it's funny that we had mentioned this last weekend when Ralph and I had our preview, that this was going to be a Superclásico where not both of those teams really didn't have anything to play for, if anything. Like, yeah, Cerro had a chance to go and try to, spoil the party for Libertad, but even then, it's way too far back on Olimpia. They're still trying to go into some sake of a Libertadores or Sudamericana, so that's kind of their MO. But let's go into it. Happened to a 0-0 draw. The only big thing that happened was the sending off of the goalkeeper again, Miguel Martinez. Another Superclásico where he gets sent off, and in the last few minutes, Enzo Jimenez had to be the goalkeeper on this one. And Olimpia had the chance to win it there off the free kick, but couldn't make it and couldn't capitalize. I mean, Fede, you were there. You were at the stadium. I remember what you had said beforehand. Ugly game. It was hot. I mean, that's all you could really say for this kind of really a Superclásico that I thought could have expected a bit more. But yeah, it was not a fun one for the neutrals.
Yeah, you could tell it was really hot before the game, just getting there to the match. I mean, just my way up to the booth, to the press booth. I mean, guys, I got there and I was sweating like crazy. And I was just thinking, what about these players? I mean, they got to get in there. They got to sweat it off. And they got to give a show to these people. And Olimpia fans were really waiting for something big because Olimpia has not given them much lately. They have not done well in the local league at all. In the Apertura, in the Clausura, they've only done a good journey. They've only done a good job in the Libertadores. So you were hoping for maybe Olimpia's going to look at it. They're gonna run right at Cerro Porteño. They're going to try to beat their classical rival. And Cerro was looking better before the game. You could see that they were scoring 4 or 5 goals in almost every single match that they were playing lately. So you were thinking, hey, this is a Cerro that's coming in hot. This is a Cerro that wants to fight Libertad to the end. And you could see that fight ever since Victor Bernay especially took over the head coach. I think he's kind of built that fire in the players. In every match, you can see that the players are not relaxed. But especially in this match, I kind of thought, I got the feeling that both sides were kind of okay with the draw, especially with everything that happened during the match. It was really hot during the first half. Nobody pretty much had really good opportunities. Maybe Olimpia had that header with Ivan Torres right under the goalkeeper inside the box, maybe when the first half was ending, but pretty much nothing more than that. And when the first half was over, I was thinking, okay, maybe Cerro can move a couple of pieces in the midfield, but then you saw Rafael Carrascal coming out of the game. And you heard Victor Bernay after the game, the head coach, saying he asked me to come out of the game. He was not doing okay after the hot weather. He couldn't handle the high temperature. So it clearly had an effect on the game. It clearly had an effect on the players. So it was probably not a good call to play at 5 p.m. The game should probably be played at night, but it's a security issue, and even when the goalkeeper was sent off, Miguel Martinez, right behind them was Cerro Porteño fans, and they were attacked by Olimpia fans, and they kind of reacted. They had a confrontation there with the police. I thought the game was not going to end, to be honest with you guys, after that red card, but thankfully it did end. Olimpia maybe had that great opportunity in that free kick. I don't know what Diego Torres did. I don't think anybody understands what he tried to do, hitting the ball so high when you have a goalkeeper that's not a goalkeeper. And so Jimenez had to take that spot because Cerro couldn't change any more players. They had already subbed in all they had. So, I mean, it's an okay draw. It's what you've seen all year from these teams. Pretty much nothing to be secure about. You don't know what you're expecting from Olimpia. Derlis Gonzalez is not on his best form. They don't have a center forward right now. They didn't play with a center forward in this Superclásico. They played with Hugo Fernandez and Derlis Gonzalez. So you were thinking that they needed to have a big game on that midfield, and they did not do that, And Tiki is just moving the pieces around game by game. He's just not uh, getting the flow of a game. He's not finding a team. And I thought Cerro Porteño could have stopped, could have stomped on that acceleration a little bit more. They could have accelerated. They could have looked at it a little bit more, and I think it could have been more on them. I think they really could have won this. But Bernard wanted to come out of this game, I think, just alive, Raf. I think he's wanting to keep his image, his good image. He doesn't want to lose these big games. He kind of wants to keep this job also for next year. And I think that had a lot to do with this 0-0 draw.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke a lot about the heat, and just a reminder, the night before had been awful weather, like with the storms. It was I think Nacional Ameliano was the game where almost they couldn't finish playing because it was just raining so much. And what happens is, of course, the next day after the rain, when you've got all that humidity and the sun comes up, I mean, I've been there. I know what you mean. It's not just the heat, it's the humidity as well, right? And so that surely affected the players. And there's the big issue you said about security. The game was being played at Olimpia's home stadium for many, many years. Neither team used their home stadium. All the games were played in Defensores del Chaco. Sometimes they took it to Ciudad del Este and it was mostly a security measure. But since Cerro have got their very nice new ground in La Nueva Olla, they want to use that for themselves. They want to make money. They want to use the game. So then Olimpia want home advantage as well. But Olimpia's ground is much smaller. Well, both grounds are in a difficult area to get to, really, and is not particularly safe because you're around lots of houses and that kind of thing. So, small alleyways is not great for security. So that's why the game has to be earlier. But if you have a day like that when it's really hot, it can really affect the match. But other than weather, I mean, I think the tactical setup by Chiquiase was very defensive. I think he decided, even though they're the home team, he's going to put the pressure on Cerro to try and win the game. Like you said, he didn't play with a striker alongside Delis Gonzalez. It was just more Hugo Fernandez trying to do that box to box, which he does very well, but it wasn't to be in that game. And Cerro also were playing with 3 central midfielders, so you had like a really compact game, and nothing was really happening through the middle. I think Cerro's best kind of outlet was Pachi Carrizo, but he can't do everything on his own, but also I think he wasn't at his best. So that's why we got this really kind of dull matchup. I think, Roberto, we said, right, that we both thought it would be a draw. I think we said a score draw. And my point was, I couldn't see any team has the quality to score twice in the game. It turns out no one had the quality to even score once in the game. And so we got this 0-0, which is quite rare. I think this is now, I think it's 4 draws in a row, but this is the first 0-0 we've had for a while in the Superclasico, because usually, the teams push each other, and if one scores, the other kind of responds, but we didn't even get to that stage. And for the final free kick, I mean, Diego Torres, it was incredible what he was trying to do, but also it's surprising that he took the free kick, because you had other players in there. I don't know if Ali Silva was still there, right? I think it was Silva standing over it.
Well, it could have been Zavala or Richard Ortiz. I think they were still in the game.
Zavala as well, yeah. Yeah, Zavala had a very good game, actually. That's worth noting. He was one of the better players. I mean, it was a good game for defenders, so I thought Zavala did very well for Olimpia. And then in Cerro, the young kid, Quintana, he won everything in the air, playing in centre back. He's only 18, and he's kind of been thrust in because Cerro have no centre backs otherwise, which has been their problem since Alexis Duarte left, and then they got rid of Patiño. And so it was a good game for defenders, and I think those two did well. Now we have to see, I guess the big question for Cerro coming up, they play today as we go to recording, is Jean Fernandez was not in for indiscipline. Miguel Martinez has been sent off. So do they have to call back Fernandez, or do they go with Miers, the young goalkeeper who had a terrible game, if we're honest, the last time in the Superclasico?
What do you do with John Fernandez, Roberto? I want to hear your take on this situation, because each fan has their point of view. He's one of the players that fans really love. They really took a hold of him. He's been very important. He's been one of the best goalkeepers also in the Paraguayan game lately. But John has his things, I mean, he likes to taunt people, he likes to troll people, he likes to make fun of the opponents, and his relationship with the rest of the team, with his team, is not the best apparently. And it was kind of weird. I mean, the coach told all the players to stay in Cerro Porteño. They couldn't leave. They couldn't go home after the game. They wanted he wanted for all the players to stay together before the Superclasico. John Fernandez said that his bed broke and he had to go home to sleep because he couldn't sleep in that bed that was broken. They couldn't change the bed. That's the excuse that the player and his manager gave after the situation happened. And when John Fernandez went to the practice the next day, the coach told him, "You're not gonna play with us. You're not gonna play the next game." That's why Miguel Martinez took over. He was at the goalkeeper position for 2 games until the Superclásico, but just like Ralph was saying, he was sent off. So now you got to bring back John Fernandez, which you think you weren't going to see him the rest of the year, especially when his manager was saying he's got 3 or 4 options in Mexico. He's got a couple of offers. I'm going to take him out of there. But then you're going to need him again. You're going to need him against Luqueño. What do you do with John Fernandez, Roberto? Do you just let it go? Do you forget about everything that happened? Or, I mean, everybody was waiting for an apology from him, but he never apologized to his teammates, apparently.
Yeah, it's weird. It really is. You never want to be put into a situation where you have to deal with a player, and I think as well, this is stuff that has to be done privately. I would say, certainly, I think having to be a good man manager is always important to any sort of successful team. But of course, like you had said, if indeed there is kind of like that harmony broken between the teammates, doesn't matter how good you are. You don't want someone that toxic in the on the team. So no, I mean, look, if I'm him, I'm like, you kind of have to move on. You really do, because there is no coming back. Especially, yeah, if you haven't apologized, then are you really going to keep someone like that? I mean, it feels kind of straightforward in a way that, okay, maybe this could have done privately, but you don't deal with situations like, you see that all the time. Like, it's best to separate that. Doesn't matter how good you are, because you could ruin the team harmony and you could ruin how a team works well. I mean, Ralph, this has happened in multiple sports and other, not just the football, but like when you deal with someone that is very toxic, the best thing you can do is just separate it from there. I mean, yeah, there are times where you could work with it and it's been done, but not in a case like this.
I think it's a big moment for Banai, to Fede's point earlier, that he's trying to secure this job, right? He's always been a very good interim manager. Everybody at the club likes him, but when it's been the time for the big role, they've usually looked for other managers, often going abroad and bringing in managers there. And so I think he's trying to really put his mark. And this is maybe the way to do it, to show that he has that impact. I mean, if I was him right now today, I would play Mears, and you risk losing the game against Luqueño, but you've already qualified for the Libertadores. Nothing's really at stake. The chances you win the title are very low, and then Miguel Martinez can come back in, and you kind of stay on your word, and you haven't negotiated that. So I would probably take that risk, because calling back Jean Fernandez, it's a short-term solution. I mean, he will be back for these 2 games or 3 games, and then he's gonna go. He's surely gonna go at the end of the year in the transfer window. Whether he plays now or not, I think that relationship's over. So if I was Benai, I would just go with Mias, kind of stick to my word, and see what happens. I mean, the problem would be what happens tonight if Mias gets sent off. Then you're in like the Chile women's team situation, that they don't even have a recognized goalkeeper going into the Pan American finals because they didn't call up enough. So they're playing tonight with a striker in goal. I don't know if you guys have been following that, but this could happen to Cerro in theory. If Mias gets injured, I don't know, is there like the under-19s keeper you're going to play, or what would you do? So it is a risk, but I think he's almost got like a free game, knowing that they already qualified for the Libertadores.
Yeah, I mean, this is a situation that happens a lot. There is something that does happen, but what's your take on it ultimately?
I think you guys are being way too harsh on John Fernandez. I think he's a really good goalkeeper, and maybe give him a sanction. He's already missed 2 games. Isn't that enough already? Yeah, maybe a lot of people were expecting an apology from him. Maybe he feels that he has nothing to apologize for. So maybe it's just like Roberto was saying. I mean, yeah, get everybody in the room, talk about it. Let's get over the situation. We got a couple more games. You are our best goalkeeper. To be honest, in the squad, we don't have another one like you. I think the coach has to be sincere about the situation and get the player back on his side. I mean, you cannot have a player that, like Roberto was saying, is toxic, that's going up against your own players. I mean, Cerro's still fighting for something. Cerro still wants to make it a run until at least the last couple of games. But yeah, obviously Libertad is almost taking it away, and you got to think about next year. Cerro's already qualified for the Libertadores. Maybe they need to think about a new goalkeeper for next year. Miguel Martinez has not passed the test, and it's so bad. I feel so bad for Miguel Martinez. He has played 4 Superclásicos, and 2 of them he has been sent off. And this is a goalkeeper that you're kind of waiting for him to take off. You know, he was one of the young goalkeepers when he was playing in General Diaz, when he was just starting off, that you could see that, hey, this kid's got something. Maybe this guy could be the national goalkeeper one day, but he has never been the starting goalkeeper in Cerro Porteño, especially since John came. So I don't think they're going to give that job to Miguel Martinez after what happened again in the Superclásico. I do think if John Fernandez ends up leaving Cerro Porteño, Cerro's going to start looking in the market. They're probably going to bring in another goalkeeper.
It seems to be kind of the way that they kind of do business here. So we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, before we close it off here, we do have to talk about what's going on in England, because again, we saw Miguel Almiron score for Newcastle, his 4th goal in a 3rd different competition. He scored in the Premier League, he scored in the Champions League. Now he's doing it in the EFL Cup, and he's doing it against no other than, they're not doing so well right now, and it's hard to say that. It's crazy to even think that, but Manchester United, they beat them 3-0 over there in Old Trafford, and 29 goals for him at this case, Ralph. You know, he's very close to being the all-time top goal scorer for a Paraguayan in English football. He's already going to be the all-time top goal scorer at a single club. He would surpass Roque's Blackburn record for the most goals at an English club. He's going to do that. So yeah, I mean, it's good to see him do and get that confidence right before the start of the World Cup qualifiers in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, a good result as well, knowing that in the League Cup final, of course, they lost to Man United. So this was some kind of revenge, knocking them out, I guess. And I think what you mentioned is really interesting, because I was looking at this earlier, that it is the first time he's ever scored in 3 different competitions in the same season, and it's happening so quickly. That it's, you know, he's become an important player across the team. I think he had some time where he was out of the team, but then he worked his way back in, and you can see like he's just such a useful member of this squad, and that's why he's been there for several seasons, and he's racking up the goals now, as you're saying, and closing in on these records. This was a good response to what's going on in his personal life, because of course he got the ban for driving without a license. Which he was probably surprised, because in Paraguay, you don't get banned for 6 months for driving without a license or without your cellular. But he reacted to, you know, on the pitch, he's doing his stuff. And I think it's interesting as well that if you guys remember last season when he went on that really good scoring run, it was round about this time. It was October, November, that he was in that middle of, you know, he scored, I think, in 3 or 4 games consecutively or something in the league. And so he's just picking up now, maybe at the right time. And let's hope he just hits it and keeps that going for the 2 big qualifiers coming up. I mean, that's what we're really hoping for, that we see him doing really well in England, and that's great. But we want him to do it in the Albiroja and get some goals. But yeah, it was also like a really classic Almiron goal, just that pace, right? A lot of people, I think sometimes the kind of criticism of him is, oh, he's just, you know, like very kick and run, and all he does is kind of run with the ball or run off the ball, but he uses it very effectively, and he's an intelligent player, and I think he did really well there to score that goal.
Is this coach using him on both sides? Is he using him only on the left side? Because usually on the national team, especially since Ramon Sosa came over, guys, I mean, we've only seen him play on the right side on the attack of the Paraguayan team. So I saw the goal score from the left. So is he playing more on the left now than on the right? That has to do a lot with the role that he's going to take on the national team also.
Yeah, it's more of a rotation, because they also played with a lot of reserves. Newcastle have a lot of injuries at the moment, so they're kind of like improvising in a way. But yeah, I mean that's a good thing, because that way, if you have someone that could work on both flanks, it allows you to fully utilize their strengths. But yeah, I mean, Fed, I mean, this was someone that, credit to what Ralph said about, yeah, it's good to see him do those performances and to score. And he did well against Bolivia. He actually had one of the better games that he had. But yeah, I mean, he's got to score. And the one thing that I worry is like his numbers are also just kind of worrying. And I know you don't like the whole numbers stats, like you don't care as much as like what you see on the pitch, because maybe that's what matters at the end. But ultimately, people will talk about numbers, and that's something that I think it frustrates a lot of people as well, that he doesn't perform and doesn't have the statistics to back himself up.
But he's always having an impact on the games, and I think that's the big part of what he's doing in Newcastle. I mean, that's why fans love him. I was looking at the stands, and I saw like 3 fans with a shirt that had Miggy's face on it. That image was just crazy for me. I mean, he's one of the favorites in Newcastle fans, and he just keeps on doing that. He just keeps that motivation going. He does not relax, guys, and I think that talks really well about a player that's competing, that's up there in the elite right now in Europe, and he's just not letting go of that situation. He wants more and more. He played his first championship game, Champions League games this year, so it's just he knows that there's more out there for him, and he knows that the World Cup it's one of his goals. He wants to make that happen for Paraguay. So I think I see Miguel Almiron driven with that term that has a lot to do with what happened this week. Somebody was mentioning yesterday that the same thing happened to Carlos Tevez. You guys remember him?
Yeah, that's
in
I
Manchester
tweeted
City,
out
right?
I tweeted out a
Oh, you
photo of
tweeted?
them together. Yeah, so it was kind of funny
Yeah,
to
because
see.
they
Yes,
celebrated the same exact way. So I don't
exactly.
know if maybe I don't kind of remember that situation or somebody sent it to him, but he had the celebration right away. He probably thought about that when the goal happened. And hey, he scored against Manchester City. He now scored at Old Trafford. I mean, he's scoring against all the big teams in the Premier League. So that's got to be huge also for him. Just those dreams come true. I mean, scoring in Old Trafford, that's something that all players dream about. So that I'm really happy for him, and I want to see that Miguel Almiron again against Colombia. The next 2 games that we have coming up, especially Colombia, because that's the game that's going to be played in Paraguay in Asunción. So I'm really looking forward to that, to seeing the best Miguel Almiron, to see all the players please come healthy, because that was the big issue that we had last time around to make the list. Everybody was not healthy, and we really need them for these last 2 games of the year.
They got Newcastle play Arsenal this weekend, Ralph's Arsenal, who are doing very good, and then they go to Dortmund and travel to take on Borussia Dortmund, a very tough game, an intimidating crowd over there in Germany. So that's something. And those I think those are the last few games before they finish it off for the year, before they sorry not for the year, before the international break.
Before the end of the year, we might see Julio Cesar come back, because he's looking really good. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with Enzo Gonzalez. I don't know if you guys had any updates on him.
He's been
playing lately. Does he look like he might fit in eventually into the first squad?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, for Enciso, yeah, he's doing very well. He's not going to get called up for this year, because for these qualifiers, I think it's just too soon. But yeah, very soon he will definitely be back on Brighton in a crucial point, because they got African Cup of Nations, Asian Cup, so they got players that they're going to be missing out. It's a packed schedule in December, so there's a lot of games going on. And Ralph, to Enzo Gonzalez as well, we're actually seeing him perform not very, very well, but he's doing decently for the U21s. And his manager Gary O'Neill said that he's getting accustomed to it. He's trying to get grips to English football. And from what I've been seeing in some of the games, is that thankfully you could see Wolves games from the U21s on YouTube for free. He's done pretty well. He got an assist in one of the games, I think it was PSV or something. So he's done decently well, at least there.
Yeah, I think he's holding his own. The difficulty at the moment is that Pedro Neto is doing really well for Wolves. So that would be the most natural.
Who's injured, by the way? Right now?
Oh,
he got injured on the weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, because I think he was leading assists for Wolves. And so if he's injured, then maybe that, pushes one person up, and that will push possibly Gonzalez into the Premier League squad. I think we've seen him once, right, in the Premier League squad. So maybe, okay, that's interesting. I would have seen him as the natural replacement there. I don't think they would play him in the middle in the Premier League, not now. They would definitely start him wide, and then then bring him in. Similar to what we saw with Enciso. I think Enciso used to play a lot wider in those opening games, and now with the confidence, he's able to play through the middle.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to all these players over there in England and also across the world before the start of the World Cup qualifiers. As Fede said, we hope that we don't get any injuries before that as well. So again, to close up another great episode of Guarani Vision, for myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hanna, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.